Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about a term that gets thrown around a lot out there, off and on. It comes and goes, and that's this term of power building. And we've even heard people like Mike O'Hearn promote it, and people who have been in powerlifting circles for a long time, we laugh at this. In fact, I know many powerlifters, in fact, who some people say think look like bodybuilders, who think that the term is extremely cringy. Like, I can think of several guys I know who are pretty hardcore powerlifters who, again, all you guys would think that they're a bodybuilder who's like 12 weeks out from a show most of the time. If you saw them, who just laugh and say it's the cringiest, most stupid idea ever. And people would say, well, why? Because power building is just powerlifting without competing. In other words, all these power building ideas that people throw around out there are just powerlifting programs. That's all they are. That's all they are. And in some cases, though, they're just powerlifting without doing the maxes. Now, if you do maxes and you actually do heavy singles in there, then you really are just training like a powerlifter, just not doing meets. Because at a certain point, there's almost no difference. And the whole idea is that people try to pretend like it's combining powerlifting and bodybuilding without understanding the fact that bodybuilding itself doesn't have any form of training specifically associated with it at all. And the reason I say that, historically, even before the drugs became as prevalent and as abused as they are now, and actually, now that the gear does most of it, there's less variation in how they train. Go back and look historically at how bodybuilders, and I'm talking IFBB pros, have trained. And oftentimes their training methods don't look anything alike. Okay, they can be so vastly different that you'd be shocked that they're not anything alike. No one would even think these guys compete in the same sort of thing. I mean, you take some of the stuff that Minzer did versus, say, Arnold's programs from the same era. You would not think that they compete in the same discipline at all if you saw the way that they trained. By comparison, you would think they were doing totally separate stuff because their training was not even remotely similar. Okay, bodybuilding is a form of beauty pageant. It's a form of performing art that, just as much of it revolves around genetics and substance abuse and everything else than it does what you do in the gym. In fact, I go so far as to say that what people choose to do in the gym in most bodybuilding circles doesn't really even matter that much. But what's ultimately happened is that a lot of people have realized historically that actually lifting heavy and building a strength base seems to really, really help in getting you jacked. Seems to really, really help. So they will coin it, let's just do a power building. We're combining these two disciplines. But you really aren't. Because you're not doing the whole bodybuilding thing to where you're dieting down ultra lean and losing muscle and all that stuff. All right? And you're not peaking for a powerlifting meet. You're not doing those things, so that the two competitive disciplines aren't being combined at all. What it is just training like a powerlifter. That's actually what it means. And if people don't understand, look at what I'm doing right now. If you guys just look at some of my assistance movements I'm doing, just my assistance work that I've got going in the background, watch just the totality of this, people would think that I'm doing power building. I'm not. This is just normal powerlifting. Do floor presses, some trap bar stuff, pull-ups, laterals, overhead pressing with a football bar. All this stuff is like in the 6 to 12 rep range, right? You see me doing all the 6 to 12 rep stuff. Some people might say, oh, he's doing bodybuilding training. He's doing 10 and 12 rep sets with laterals. Oh, he's doing 8 rep sets on these various presses and pull-ups, and yeah, that's bodybuilding. No, it's not. It's powerlifting. Powerlifting. What do you mean? It's my volume training to get bigger. People have this idea that powerlifters other than in peaking phases or when you're doing Bulgarian training or something like that, that we stand around doing the squat, bench, and deadlift for singles. Or even worse, they're doing a 5x5. 5x5 was a bodybuilding protocol, actually. 5x5 was invented by bodybuilders, not powerlifters. Some powerlifters will use it for hypertrophy training, but hypertrophy training is part of powerlifting. All right? And most top-level powerlifters do singles, threes, fives, eights, tens. Some exercises, 20s. Almost all powerlifters do supplemental lifts that are big lifts, tons of upper back work, pull-ups, rows, good mornings. Most powerlifters do smaller exercises for higher reps for their weak links. Right? That's a normal part of powerlifting. That's a normal part of powerlifting. To come in and say, hey, I need to do some rear delt work. Right? Doing a small exercise for your rear delt, some face pulls. They might do rear delt flies. I know powerlifters who use a pec deck. I know powerlifters who do dumbbell flies. Most powerlifters do small exercises for their triceps. A lot of powerlifters do curls for their biceps because it improves their bench press, or in some cases, certain types of curls can help reduce the chance of a bicep tear. So if most powerlifters do all these supplemental lifts and do 5s and 8s and 10s, and all these powerlifters do high rep tricep extensions and delt work and even rear delt work, some even do extra quad small movements. I mean, I do step ups and stuff to build my quads for high reps. Isn't that the same sort of thing they're just talking about with power building programs? It's the same thing. Powerlifters do big, heavy movements for the things that are closely related to their competition lifts, the squat, bench, and deadlift. And in some cases, even other movements that aren't the squat, bench, and deadlift. And then we do smaller supplemental lifts with large amounts of volume to bring up our weak links, which can even include laterals. It might include flies, tricep extensions, curls. There are even powerlifters who do calf raises because they know that the calves contribute to the squat. And if they're worried their calves are too small and they're not getting enough stimulation from the squat, which is unlikely, they do that. Most powerlifters do cardio and conditioning work too. I know more serious powerlifters who do hardcore conditioning work than I do even powerlifters or bodybuilders who do. So at what point is power building not just powerlifting? It's the same thing. It's just powerlifting without doing meets. No different. It's just being repackaged. And you know why it's being repackaged? Because generally speaking, as long as you're not eating like a fat slob, most powerlifters are going to be really jacked. If you train like a powerlifter, you're going to be pretty jacked and pretty strong. It works. A lot of the bodybuilding training without hormonal supplementation doesn't always work. Some of the quote-unquote bodybuilding programs actually leave you pretty small. They might leave you, certain muscle in certain places, but they're not going to make you big and thick overall because they oftentimes lack big exercises. A lot of people figured out, this stuff works. Let's just take powerlifting training and just rebrand it, and we'll just call it quote-unquote power building and act like we're adding some new stuff here. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. All right. And all these bodybuilders who do it, and Mike O'Hearn and some of these guys have a history in powerlifting. They're jacked, they're strong, and they have a base in powerlifting already. And they just pretend that they're combining the disciplines, right? And they'll try to sell it to you. But ultimately, guys, the reality is the whole power building thing is just powerlifting. In other words, it's a polite way of saying just train like a power lifter and claim you're doing a hybrid type training, right? Just claim you're doing it and just rebrand it something else, because we like to rename stuff. Like me, I call this orc mode training these days. I really just do conjugate method. That's what I do these days, the conjugate method. It's a powerlifting protocol. We just call it orc mode because it makes you big and thick like an orc, right? Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.